Midwin Charles is a criminal defense attorney, and Kendall Coffee was a U.S. attorney. Let me ask you about this. Kendall, you first down there. The nature of this, I want to get to the politics behind this, why Congress passed this law and Bill Clinton signed it. But when you ask the jury to decide whether to go ahead with executing someone who's clearly eligible for execution because of the nature of the charges and the convictions, 17 of this in this case, would that lead you to believe a jury would say execute the guy if it's 17 times enough to justify execution?
Well, I think this jury right now is ready to definitely send him to death row. It's going to be uphill for the defense, but the defense has not even really begun to defend until now, after the conviction. So they've got opportunities to try to humanize him, to try to reduce his role in the crime compared to that of his older brother, to suggest that his brother completely dominated his life. And remember, the defense just needs 1 or 2 jurors to hold out. It's got to be unanimous for a death penalty. And that's that 1 or 2 jurors that's what the defense is counting on.
How many do you think, in your experience, how many people sneak on to juries and say they're not opposed to capital punishment, but really are, and show it when it comes time to sentencing?
Well, I think there are going to be some people on that jury that have a lot of trouble sending somebody to their death. It's easy to say that I can follow the law, yes, I can support death punishment, but to look at somebody and know that you're taking responsibility for extinguishing human life, it's going to be a problem for a couple people on that jury.
Well, why do you take the oath? Why do you accept membership on a jury if you can't do, in this case, a dirty job, if you will, but it's a job that you have sworn to do?
Because all of us think we can do the right thing, that we think we're fair, that we can follow the law. But when something gets inside of us and it appeals, it's this visceral, heart-wrenching level, not so easy.
And and also, when you probably are looking to hear for the defense attorney to give you that reason.
And that's
please give me a reason not to do this.
That's right. And that's the defense attorney's job, is to basically appeal to the jurors and go over the mitigating circumstances, mitigating factors that sort of humanize this defense.
How much goes into the research here of figuring out where getting a jury, not to be too cold about this is about life and death, figuring out a jury's number. What will this juror only need, 1 or 2?
That's right. You really just need 1.
And you figure out what works.
You really just need 1. All that defense attorney has to do is appeal to that one person, their sensibility, their idea that this young man, remember, he's a very young guy.
He was 19 when he did it.
19 when he did it, 21 years old now. So the idea that you could send someone that young to death.
Let me get, I'm going to play tough guy here. I'm not a big pro or anti-death penalty person.
Okay.
I think it depends. I know of circumstances where I think it was very appropriate.
Okay.
Anyway, Царнаев was convicted on 30 counts today, 17 of which allow the death penalty. And most of the counts are based on a 1994 law supported by the following: Senators Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts, John Kerry of Massachusetts, Congressman Edward Markey of Massachusetts, Barney Frank, Joseph Kennedy, and other members of the Massachusetts delegation. So they all voted for this death penalty eligibility. And the total votes for the statute was 61 senators in that year, and 235 in the House of Representatives, overwhelming votes authorizing the use of the death penalty. And it was signed into law by then President Bill Clinton. My question, if this was the intent of Congress in our Republican form of democracy, that such crimes should carry the death penalty, what matter of case did the Congress intend for the death penalty, if not for this one involving 17 convictions carrying the death penalty? And why this law, if not now? Kendall, why pass a law if you don't intend to enforce it in the most classic example where all these people were killed in a premeditated, calculated murder? Well, why have the law if you're not going to enforce it here? That's all I'm asking. Don't have it.
The prosecutors are attempting to enforce this law. That's why they brought these charges and are pursuing the death penalty as aggressively as they can. But the law also has a role for a jury. And a jury, the way this is set up, any one of them can keep somebody from being sent to death row. That's part of the law, too. And the law gives the jurors all the flexibility in the world to search their consciences, and that's also part of the law that Congress passed.
Well, should the law say except in liberal Boston? Why don't they just write that? All these liberal Democrats, Massachusetts whole, the best people up there, Barney Frank, Ted Kennedy, Joseph Kennedy, Eddie Markey, John Kerry, all voted for this law. And now the people of Boston, the polling and the priests up there are all saying they're against it. Why are we screwing around in Congress? Stop passing laws you don't intend to enforce.
Well, it's not so much that they don't
Where else would you ever enforce it if not now?
Well, it's not so much that they don't intend to enforce it. I mean, they're legislatures. They don't enforce the law.
They write the law. And the law says capital punishment.
And it's enforced by the prosecutor who brings the charge, which you have here.
Okay.
If this were Texas, we'd be having a completely different conversation.
Look, I don't like the way that George W. Bush just signed off on the death penalty every 15 minutes either. But I think if you're going to pass a law, you have to at some point believe in what you're doing.
I'm sure that they did, but remember, it's out of their hands now. It's now in the hands of the prosecutor, and they did bring
What does everybody
charges.
think this guy's going to do in a prison for the rest of his life? He's going to sit there and plot and plot and plot.
Well, he'll be.
That's all he's going to be doing is plotting and trying to make contact
security for
with other
23
prisoners.
hours a day. He'll only be let out for 1 hour a day.
You know, everybody thinks that's the nice way to do it, and I think it's a softness in the ability to make hard decisions and live by them. This is a very brutal world we live in, and once somebody's guilty, a premeditated murder of all those kids, arms blown off, and they knew exactly what and they saw those people before they did it, and they did it to innocent people. Why have a law against that? Why have a capital punishment if you're not going to use it? That's all I ask. Stop playing games. Anyway, thank you, Midwin Charles. I know you defend these guys, and they have to be defended, but I wouldn't want this guy defended too much. Kendall Coffee, thank you, sir. You're going to make me look like a right-winger. But on this baby, this guy was attacking our country. And he was killing. And if you'd been in that crowd, he would have blown it up just as quickly. Don't kid yourself. Up next, Candace Bergen will be here.